Hey everybody, this is Eric from the Dogs of Warcry, and in this video called Building a Narrative with Questor Soulsworn, I'm going to take you through kind of the narrative warband that I'm building with the Questor Soulsworn. And I want to talk to you through a little bit of some of the kind of the history of the Knight Questors, so that if you're building a Questor Soulsworn warband, that you might find some inspiration in these different things. So let's walk through it. So let's talk about the role of the Knight Questor in the Age of Sigmar lore. Typically, the Knight Questor is kind of this individual, this loner, someone who's been set off on their own missions, their own journey, separate from the kind of armies or the kind of, the legions of Stormcast. I like to think of them as being sort of like the God King himself, who saw himself both as, this individual fighter who would go up against kind of the mightiest foes, but also rules as kind of a solitary figure in the pantheon. They're often created or sent on these missions solo, things that a group couldn't handle on their own, or even something, sometimes feel like they're imbued with something greater. There's sort of this this heroism that I think embodies both Sigmar, but it's sort of this highlight. We see the Stormcast are created from people with like great virtue amongst their people, and when they die, their souls are taken up and turned into Stormcast. And so I think the Knight Questor is sort of an embodiment of that. Now, there's been a number of Knight Questors that have been created in plastic. So we have a number of models. The first time we saw one was in the Silver Tower. We got a Knight Questor. It was super cool, left-handed. That's pretty neat. And these are all painted in the Hammers of Sigmar. The second one we got was Larissa Shadowstalker, who's kind of, I'd say, kind of duels against other bad guys, but also a monster hunter. Another theme. I think monsters are kind of tough, so having a Questor go against them. We got Dacian Anvil. I feel like I missed a name there, but seem to have been slaying ghosts and demons. And then we have another model, the Silas Beastbane, who's a monster killer. Very cool models in the range. And so if you're building the Knight Questors and you want to bring somebody like this, now there's no individual war scrolls for them except for the Silver Tower Knight Questor, so you could play them all as a Knight Questor. But just some cool, characterful models that if you want to bring them into Warcry, this warband could be a great way to do that. Notable novels. If you like to read, if you like to get into the Age of Sigmar lore and you want to read some about these Knight Questors, first off, we've got the character Avanius, who is in the Labyrinth of the Lost, which was a Silver Tower novel. So when the Warhammer Quest Silver Tower came out, this novel came out with it, and you get to get a little bit of Avanius, which is the named character in the novel. The most notable Knight Questor was Hamilcar Bear-Eater, who used to be the Lord Celestant of the Astral Templars, specifically the Bear-Eaters. But through a number of these novels, he sets off on his own journeys, fighting Skaven, fighting other, like some Tzeentch here and there, just some crazy stuff. And he's got this really great personality. One of the probably favorite characters in all of Age of Sigmar lore is Hamilcar Bear-Eater. So couldn't recommend highly enough listening to or reading the books that they're in. Another less notable, the Auric Ravenscar, is a Knight Questor in a particular book. I've not read this one or even heard of it before doing this research. And then Val Arturius is a character that was created for some of the sample stories in the Soulbound books. So Soulbound is a role-playing game in which you can play a Knight Questor, and I've been in I've been in one campaign where I played a Knight Questor, and really enjoyed it. A lot of fun. Can do a lot of cool things that you hope a heroic Stormcast with the shield could do. So just if you want to get into the lore, if you want to learn more about Questors in AOS to kind of paint a better picture of your Questor Soulsworn, this would be a good resource. Now, when I think of the Questor Soulsworn, it made me think of like the A team. Like when you have a problem, you call these guys. Instead, I call them the Q team. Real cute, right? What's different about these guys is you may have seen in this is all of these guys are wearing kind of the older, bigger, chunkier armor from the first edition, from the Warrior's Chamber. So really big, hulking. But when we get to the Questors, they're wearing Thunderstrike armor, much thinner, felt more like the stuff from the most recent release of Stormcast. But you also see what's different here is that they're all using various weapons. You did see that in those big models. The Night Questor, profile for fighter card for Warcry is pretty simple. There's not like a ton of variants in the loadout or anything like that. But in the Questors, we do have kind of that variation, which is really cool. It starts really showing off some different things. And we can see kind of the range, a really cool range. You can build a combination of these, a couple of these more than others. We've got our Questor Prime. We got our Soulsworn Knight Relictor. We got our Errant Questor with Grand Hammer. We've got one with a Grand Axe, the Errant Questor with Grand Blade, Grand Spear, and then our Duelist with Twin Blades. So, really cool range of models. And, they all sort of, you can see where they kind of draw some inspiration from some other models in the range. And so I took some time to kind of do some comparisons. Some other notable Questor Soulsworn, although we didn't know it and until the book came out, this release, and we got to learn a little bit that Xandar's Truth Seekers fall into that category of Questor Soulsworn. They've got that sleeker kind of loadout, etc. We even got one with a bow, which is also unique. And then Calthea herself with the lantern, kind of pulling that all together, which is really cool. I think, and I think everyone's can see Calthea would be a really good addition with the current her current kind of white dwarf abilities and her ability to use some of the Thunderstrike abilities. Cool stuff to do in the games. This is all the abilities. These are the reactions and that sort of stuff. So we've got the Swift Retribution, and we'll kind of break that down a little bit. So when targeted by melee attack, after the damage is total but before it's allocated, if the damage is enough to take this fighter down, pick another friendly fighter, and that fighter makes a bonus move action. So Stormcast in general in the compendium have sort of an ability to do damage when they die. This is to help one of their brethren out, their brothers or sisters, and get them to be able to move some more. And you'll see this throughout these guys, is that there's a lot of ways to get extra movement in and say, even some extra attacks to kind of buffer any extra movement that they have to do. But we also have to think about these other things that they can do. So we don't think about all of these reactions. So counter is a great reaction for these guys because they're highly, high toughness. Take cover after targeted by a melee attack action before hit rolls are made. Critical hit becomes a 4-up. Maybe not as necessary for these guys because counter is so interesting. And then strike them down. Visible enemy fighter within 1 inch makes a disengage action before their fighter moves away. On a 4-up, deal d6 damage. I think this one is a pretty strong ability to think about using with these guys because they're spending a lot of time to kind of move in and get something, and most things may not. A lot of chaff won't want to deal with that. So if you can use that for a 50-50 for a d6, that could work out, especially in narrative play where one of these models would have some renown. It's a great place to spend it rather than counter. So just to think about that. Here's all their doubles. This warband is a doubles heavy warband. I've played a few games with them, and I found myself using my my wild dice to get extra doubles to bring. In one case I was able to bring more than one double into play because these guys are double hungry. You could spend, if you had unlimited doubles, you would use them all for these guys. So just know that doubles are a great place to start. Thundering Strides, you activate one of your Soulsworn fighters, and they get to pick somebody within 6 inch to move. And it's a fun thing if you have 2 together. One, you pick one of them, activates the other one to move, and then that one finishes their move, and then this one activates, pick that one to move. So they can essentially each get, for 2 doubles, they can each move 3 times. And it's a fantastic turn 1 to get into position. They're all 4-inch movement, and so that's 12 inches a move, for 2 of them for a couple of doubles, which is it's a fantastic use. There's another ability called You Won't Even Slow Me Down, and I think it should be amended to Ain't Nothing Gonna Break My Stride, Nobody's Gonna Slow Me Down, Oh No, I Gotta Keep On Moving. A great song by Matthew Wilder. But in this one, a fighter can only use this ability if an enemy fighter has been taken down. So this is kind of a standard. If you take an enemy fighter down, you can make a bonus move action or a bonus attack action. Some Chaos have this, and it's fantastic. It's always great to have that choice, right? So if you take someone down, you get to kind of move into the next one. And then we've got a double with the force of a thunderbolt. Now this one's a little trickier to get off. It's going to be great moving into a group of chaff. A fighter can only use this ability after they finish a move action within 1 inch or 1 inch of 2 or more enemy fighters. This fighter makes a bonus attack action. So if you have to move, you're going to regain the action that you lost to be able to take an attack action, but you do need to get into a group, which can be a bit trickier, especially if they know that's coming. And this ability is on all the errants, except for the Grand Spear. So one reason I'll talk about that later, that Grand Spear is not my favorite, but I think some other people do like them. Then just remembering the universal abilities, adding 1 to the move characteristic of this fighter until the end of their activation. Just again, if you're using Thundering Strides on somebody, and then you can give them rush, they could be moving 14 inches. Onslaught and 1 to the attacks characteristics. This one's actually pretty good because there's a number of these that they have a low attack count, except for 1. So like usually about 3 attacks. So to give them an extra attack with especially those grand hammers, definitely an option. Onslaught's often good when you're not trying to move anywhere and you just need to attack more. But so those are things. A lot of good doubles here. Again, they're going to be double hungry. They can use them a lot to great advantage. We got triples though. Searing Light. This is only on the Prime, and we'll look at the allocate 3 damage points to all visible enemy fighters within 3 inches of this fighter. I was able to use this on a game recently against some OCR Bone Reapers. They have their chaff with the shields, and they're tough 5 or tough 6. And this ignores that toughness. So you could really wear down some high tough chaff. You think of a lot of skeletons, especially. You think of longbeards. You can really use this to wear those sorts of chaff down, and you can get, if you can get into a group and blast that out. A triple's pretty easy to get, at least 1 per turn. So I've used it. I really like it. It's just another tool in the toolbox. And then we got another triple, and this is on the Duelist. Face Me, Cowards. Enemy fighters that begin their activation within 3 inches of this fighter cannot make a disengage action or end their move actions further from this fighter. And I gotta say, there's many times where I wish I had this in place. I only have 1 Duelist on the board at the moment, and so it's not always able to make this work. But if you've got a key kind of enemy or opposing fighter enemy fighter that you really want to get out of, that's trying to run away and you want to keep them from doing it, this can be a great way to just kind of lock them in place. They can still move around you in circles and that sort of stuff, but you sort of like hold them there so that your buddies can come in and help you deal with them. And then we've got Respite. Fighter cannot use this ability if they're within 1 inch. Remove a number of damage points allocated to this fighter equal to the value of this ability. This can be great because these guys have, everybody's got 20 wounds. They're not unkillable. Toughness 5. If somebody puts a lot of work into it, they can take these things down. But to be able to just gain a little bit of that back and kind of make it harder to get that last kill, it's a fantastic idea. Inspiring Presence. This is interesting because so you pick a visible friendly fighter within 6 inches, and you can that hasn't activated, and then you can activate them immediately after this activation ends. What's interesting here is if you happen to have more than one triple, you could daisy chain this because everybody's a hero in the Soulsworn Warband. So you could start with whoever. It doesn't even have to be your leader. And in fact, my leader took for the narrative campaign took a heroic trait that he can use, Inspiring Presence, for free. And so I could daisy chain this a couple of times if I had 2 triples. You might be using up a lot of activations, but if you really need to concentrate attacks on a single spot or get something under control in a particular turn, because once these guys get somewhere, they're hard to move, but you want to get them there quickly. So this could be a great way to say, hey, let's everybody move all at once. And you're often going to be out activated with this warband, and so it may be okay to get even more out activated if you want to use it. It could be fun to do sometime and just see how it goes, to have a dog pile on top of another group or another fighter or a monster or something like that. So just something to think about. Now onto the quads. Translocation. Pick a friendly fighter. This is not faction locked, so it wouldn't have to be another Questor Soulsworn. If you include these guys, this is for the Knight Relictor or the Soulsworn Relictor. If you put them in another group, they can use that teleport on any model in your group. Remove that fighter from the battlefield, then immediately set them up anywhere on the battlefield more than 4 inches from all enemy fighters. So more than 4 inches, they still have plenty of ability to move in and attack. So even though they just wouldn't be able to attack right away. But they've got some of those other abilities if they were to move into a group. So if you position that one into a spot where they could get into 2 or more enemy fighters, and then on their turn they got to move in and use nobody's gonna hold me down. I got that all wrong. Anyway, so I don't like to build warbands around quads, but I felt like this one is cool enough that I might pick this sometime instead of Rampage. So something to think about. But then, of course, we have Rampage. And when you have fighters with good attacks, it's great to use it. If you have the duelist used Rampage on a duelist who has strength 4 attacks, a lot of strength 4 attacks, very susceptible to counter. So just be careful of who you're using it on. But it can be fantastic, especially tied in with some of these abilities where they can get an extra, although they wouldn't be able to do that in the same one spend a double to get an extra attack because they're using the quad for Rampage. But just know that you've got that double to get if you take something down, you can get a bonus attack action, which plays a lot like a Rampage, right? If you do it well. So you may not need Rampage as much and could use your quad for translocation more often if you want to. I have had it, though, where I've preferred to hold on to triples for some of those other abilities, and then just used that wild dice instead of making a triple into a quad, making another double. Because, again, they're double hungry. All right, let's get into the fighter profiles. And we'll do a little bit of comparison here with some of the Dominion Thunderstrike models that you might have. So if you wanted to use those in place of the Soulsworn, or if you were thinking about, should I include this over, they have profiles for all of those in the compendium, but here's where they would compare. So first off, we've got our Questor Prime, who has access to Thundering Strides, Nobody Gonna Slow Me Down, and Searing Light. Range of 2, 4, 4, 2, 4, attack profile, 4 move, 5 toughness, 20 wounds. That 4, 5, 20 across the board. So we don't need to mention it again. Everybody's got that same profile. But the 4, 4, 2, 4, not a bad attack profile, especially from range 2. And it's great at taking out chaff, especially at range 2. I'm playing the Questor Prime, and I like to keep them kind of a little bit more protected than the others. But just I'm not getting them into fights quite as much as I'm trying to get the other things into fights. But she's great at backing them up, standing behind one and getting pokes in. But let's see what her comparison is. All right, we've got the Praetor Prime. I didn't get all the abilities down here. The Praetor Prime is 45 points more expensive. It has +1 strength, it has +1 critical damage, and it has 8 more wounds. For 45 points, that's quite a bit, and so the Praetor Prime would not be a bad option. The points are probably going to be one of the hard things to try and move in. But if you were to play this model, you can see how alike they are. So if you wanted to play a Praetor Prime as a Questor Prime, I could definitely see it working. So something to think about. That's how they compare. The Soulsworn Knight Rector has access to Thundering Strides, You Won't Even Slow Me Down, and Translocation. They have 2 attack profiles. This is the only ranged attack profile in the Questor Soulsworn warband, and it can come in handy. Another reason to bring the Relictor along. Range of 8, which means they can also do in close combat if they're within 3 inches. 2, 4, 3, 5. Again, not a pretty great damage profile, not a bad strength profile. The 2 attacks, always a little bit of a, can be disappointing to roll 2 dice but perfectly statistical to miss them both. And then we got a hammer that is a 3, 4, 3, 4. These, you'll see this too with these guys, is they've got a little bit more of a flat damage profile with the 3, 4s, or a 2, 3 or something like that. But let's compare them to the Knight Relictor. It's only a 15-point difference. You get -1 attack. You get -8 wounds, but you get +1 to the damage, the basic hit damage, and then you get a ranged attack. So for a 15-point cheaper model, I don't think that's too bad. I think that there's some really cool reasons why you might bring the Knight Relictor, or the Soulsworn Relictor, over the Knight Relictor. I think the Knight Relictor has a couple of cool abilities too, but I think it's maybe a little more themey to keep the one that we get. Now we get into our errant questors, and I'm trying to match these in general with the primes of the group that they're in, just because I think that's probably the best comparison. However, the Grand Hammer does not have an equal, so we're going to compare him to an Annihilator Prime. Now, you could compare him to a regular Annihilator, but you can't ally regular Annihilators in, so let's compare it to the Prime, because that's what a lot of people like. So it's 35 points cheaper, 1 less attack, -1 to the crit damage, so we've got a 3, 4 instead of a 3, 5, -1 toughness, and -5 wounds. So it's a little bit cheaper, but I like the high strength of the attack. The 3, 4 damage profile is still pretty strong. That base 3 is great. It means very reliable. It's gonna just wear something down. And when I've used the Grand Hammer, other than the time where one of them is whiffed 3 attacks out of 4, I really enjoyed playing the Grand Hammer. Then we got our Grand Blade. Has access to Thundering Strides, You Won't Even Slow Me Down, and with the Force of the Thunderbolt, which is if you get within 1 inch of 2 or more models, which we had with the Grand Hammers. The Grand Blade has 1 more attack, strength 5, so a little less strong than the Grand Hammer. 2, 4 damage, so kind of the lower end of the good, I think, damage profiles. And is just an all-around, I think, just a good fighter. Fun to have. It's a cool model. I like the Grand Hammer a bit better as a profile, but little strength 5 with 4 attacks ain't bad. We're going to compare this to the Vanquisher Prime. 20 less points, -1 attack compared to the actually kind of flipping their attack and strength profile, and then -5 wounds. So I mean, I prefer a little bit of more strength here because we get a little bit more attacks with the Duelist. So just having that variety, but just give you a sense of where the two stand against each other. Then we got the Grand Spear with Thundering Strides, You Won't Even Slow Me Down. And here's one of the reasons I don't love the Grand Spear, because it doesn't have access to as many abilities. It has some of the same ones the other ones do. it has a 3-inch reach. I don't play with a lot of 3-inch reach stuff, so it's not something I've experienced. So that may be some of my bias, is that that's not something I'm used to using or know how to pilot well. But I'm, being tough 5, 20 wounds, and having 3-inch reach, you could be very protective with these guys and still. And if you're wanting to move forward and get some attacks in, these guys are really great for having that kind of projection of power. So who do we compare them to? The Vindictor Prime. Not exactly the same. I don't think these are considered to be grand spears, but we got 2-inch reach. So we got the Errant Questor has an additional reach, has an additional strength. Is -1 to their toughness because they don't have the shield, and -5 wounds, but same cost. So I kind of like the additional range and strength compared to the Vindictor Prime. But, that toughness and wounds aren't bad. The 20 wounds, like I said, these guys can still die. I've lost them. And especially if you're getting out activated, that's one of the reasons you're going to lose them. But let's move on. Then we got our Grand Axe. Same access to what most Errants have, the Thundering Strides, you won't slow me down, and with the force of a Thunderbolt. 2-inch reach. So if you like similar to the Questor Prime, and as you can guess, also comparing it to the Praetor Prime. 50 fewer points, -1 attack, -8 wounds. Not bad though. I think that -1 attack, not great. But if you're comparing it to the two, I think we've got for that fewer points, I think we're not losing a ton. But again, here with the 3 attacks is very low. I prefer the Grand Hammer. The benefit here is really the additional range, the reach. But again, that's not necessarily my strength. So if you like a little more range with your melee attacks, these guys are really great. A little bit stronger compared to similar to the Grand Spear with the 3-inch range. So they do have access to with a force of a Thunderbolt, similar to the others. Then we get to our Errant Questor Duelist. Has access to Thundering Strides. You won't even slow me down. Triple for Face Me, You Cowards. Has 5 attacks, which is fantastic. I love having a load of dice to roll. Strength 4, 2, 3. So kind of on the lowest end of kind of the attack profiles for this warband. Beautiful for going after chaff. And then if in narrative, if you have ability to boost up their damage with some of their faction specific great artifacts, or some of the generic or universal ones, then this is a great one to put kind of extra damage stuff on. And there's not really any comparison in the Dominion Thunderstrike models. So it's kind of a guy on its own, but I really like it. The model is fantastic. It gives you that access to Face Me, You Cowards, if you kind of a net, and then just that 5 attacks is pretty cool. So, what about my warband? What am I deciding to put together? Well, my narrative warband is called Quest or Bust because I have to pun my titles. The way I built it, I wanted a few things. I wanted access to all the rune marks because I wanted to try them all out. I wanted to be able to find out when I wanted to use them, etc. I did keep the Questor Prime because AoE abilities, area of effect abilities, are rare, and I think that's pretty fun to blast that out. So far, I've used it 3 or 4 times, which is more than I thought I would. One time just to attack a single model twice that had a really high toughness, and I was able to just whittle it down and then get lucky with rolls on an attack. The Knight Relictor, I want to try that teleport. Teleport's fun. Grand Spear, because it doesn't have access to as many rune marks, it's just gonna be trying to fight all the time, and I just didn't. I want more utility. The Grand Blade and Twin Blade over the Grand Axe for the Twin Blade for more attacks, the Grand Blade for the higher strength. So the Grand Blade and the Twin Blades have more attacks than the Grand Axe, so I left that out. And then the Grand Hammer, I decided on 2 of those because I like the extra strength and the higher hit damage. That strength, or that 3 damage on hits, is pretty tasty. So I like that consistency. I want them to be just come in and pound things. So I decided to take 2 of those. The narrative that you get in the book is that they very much come from different storm hosts. So I wanted to paint a storm host for each one. I would like to obtain either right now. I think what I've decided to do is try and obtain a greater artifact for each one of them. And there's 6 greater artifacts in the kind of faction specific tables. So I'm going to try and equip each one with their own. I got the first one after my second battle. And it's a fun way to win it, to get a quest, and we can talk about that sometime down the road. And then I might give each quester their own quest. So it might be something like, the duelist being able to use its triple, or achieve some sort of obstacle. I might find a nemesis within our league and try and take out, or each of them maybe needs to take out a leader, something like that. But that'd be pretty cool. So I'll come up with that as we go. Just a quick look through the sprues as I built my warband. These are amazing kits. You can see there's kind of 3 main chassis or builds with variety around them. So you've got essentially you've got 1 sort of bulkier male figure and 2 slighter female figures, but you could easily make them, beefier women or more slender men. Not an issue there. And they provide a ton of options for customizing these guys. First of all, there's a ton of really cool heads. Some that look, I think obviously Space Marine Blood Angels will love these heads. But there's a dude with a beard, there's the skull, there's one with kind of a lion on the top. There's a lot of unhelmeted, really cool unhelmeted heads that I really liked in this. So there's going to be a lot of options to choose from, and you can easily swap with other Stormcast kits. The pauldrons are pretty fantastic. You've got something akin to a panther. There's a fox. There's a bobcat. You can see an eagle. There's a lion, a wolf, a bull, a bear, which is really cool. I think more than anybody, I've always been a little weirded out or confused by what animal spirit is on the kind of the left pauldron of some of the unit champions. The Vanguard chamber has a bear on it, or the Long Strikes have like a eagle, on their shoulder and on their helmet. Like, I wanted to have more explanation of what connected them. So here it sort of throws caution to the wind and says, hey, there's just a lot of different ones. And it's, especially with the Knight Questors or these Questors, it doesn't matter what you pick. It's sort of what suits you. And so I'll go through some of what I picked and why as I get into it. So my Questor Prime is Aloes B. Bustin, and she is a Hammers of Sigmar. I wanted to... The thing with the Questor Prime is that one night they go to sleep, probably off on some hillock somewhere on their own, or up in a tree or in a cave or whatever. They're off on some mission. They wake up and there is a lantern by their bedside, and they're asked to pick it up and go form a group. And all of the other Questors are drawn to them. So Aloes is kind of off on her own. She's in the middle of a mission that is just not going the way it's supposed to be going, and she is just up against it. She doesn't quit, and it feels like she, either accomplished what she's doing, but not like the way she wanted to do it. And she receives the lantern, and she's a little frustrated by it. She's a little frustrated that she's got to stop what she's doing. Doesn't feel like she's completed it the way she wanted to complete it. And she's off being called to a new mission by Sigmar. So gave her this lantern, and you can see down the bottom some of the gnarlwood is bending away from her because that lantern is powerful and is kind of acting as a ward. So she's the prime, she's the leader, and and she's the kind of the center of the group. Then I got the Soulsworn Knight Relictor, Khaldun the Painstorm. He's from the Anvils of Heldenhammer, which is a dark blackish armor, and it's painted. I've found a reference here in the corner. I've seen a few different references, some with white pauldrons, but he's also carrying kind of his relics, his hammer, and I think that these guys are sort of like the first and second in command, and I think Khaldun has probably worked with Always a few times and is kind of called to this because they just known each other. There's some already kind of kinship there, and I'll be able to build off that a little bit. Unfortunately, it's good to keep them in different battle groups, just to kind of spread them out a little bit. Then we've got Noah Lion, the Truth Sayer, errant Questor with a Grand Blade. Oh, I did forget. You can't really see it. Always has a wolf as her pauldron, sort of a leader, kind of cunning, thinks about the pack, all those sorts of things. Khaldun has the skull pauldron, which is, what the relictors need. Here we got Noah Lion, of course, the Lion pauldron, and he is from the Sigmarite Brotherhood, which I've not heard any stories of. I just wanted something with a light armor, so I've got something here that's kind of a bone color armor. Wanted to work with, and he's standing there with a little bit of a cocky attitude, pointing at his sword and saying, "Come get it." I like his stance and his kind of attitude on the battlefield. Now I've got errant Questor with a Grand Hammer, first of two. This is Attain Smashvana. She's a Hallowed Knight, which is noted with their silver armor, some gold trim, and their dark blue kind of accents. She's got helmet off because she's got these golden locks. And she's just ready to smash. And in her mind, she's looking for that greatest smash, that one like perfect connection between her hammer and whatever she's hitting. And in that moment, the result will be greater than the sum of its parts, and those things attain oneness. So she's always looking to make things become one with her hammer. So that's her. And then we got Modeste, the Bashful. She is an Astral Templar. I mentioned Hamilcar Bear Eater, who is also an Astral Templar, so she's got a bear pauldron. I forgot it again. For Smashvana, she's got a bull, and that was because one of the earliest stories of the Hallowed Knights had a hero called Tarsus, the Bullheart, and so kind of just in honor of that character, she's got a bull as her pauldron. Bear as her pauldron from Modeste, Astral Templar. And then we got today Twinslay, the Duelist. He's a Celestial Vindicator. The stories of the Celestial Vindicators is that they're very, lust for fight and combat. And there's a few stories of Celestial Vindicators who have kind of lost themselves, and they've just kind of become these robotic fighting machines. So I thought that was great for these guys. So that is my warband. Started in the narrative and really having fun with them. I've gotten 2 games in, so I'll tell more stories in the podcast and beyond about these guys. But let's think about who might join this warband in the future. Certainly, there's a chance to use these cool models, and so if you have Avanius or Larissa or Dacian or Silas, you could use Avanius as a regular Knight Questor, because we've got one of those in, I believe it's in the Warrior Chamber, and it's priced well to be able to get into this warband. Larissa could be an errant Questor with Grand Spear, or with the Great Spear. We've got Dacian Anvil with his 2 weapons, so could easily be a duelist. And then we got Silas could be an errant Questor with the Great Axe. So perfect to use all of these guys as one of those Questor models, fighter profiles, if you wanted to. Of course, Xandar's Truth Seekers. You could use them as Xandar's Truth Seekers. Not a problem at all. You could also use Doraz Giantfell as an errant Questor with Great Hammer. You could use Calthea as a Questor Prime. Again, no problem. So if you wanted, but you can also use them as their fighter cards, and if they come out with new ones, then you'll have that option too. Of course, with the Thunderstrike Stormcast, the Praetor Prime could be the Questor Prime. You could also make any of the Praetors as errant Questors with Grand Axe. The Vanquishers can be errant Questors with Grand Blade. The Knight Relictor could be Soulsworn Relictor. The Vindictor could be the errant Questor with Grand Spear. All those are options. They're obviously, like I said, the Duelist and the Hammer are a little bit harder to do because there's not really a hammer wielding Thunderstrike armor profile. So of these, which ones do I think might join my warband? Well, I really love the original Knight Questor model, and I've got one that's sort of in a couple stages of conversion. They're 190 points, which means they could easily get into this warband. That you'd probably move a little bit, keep some of the 160 point models in, like I think the Duelist, to get this guy in. But it's a 4-4-2-5 profile. The tough 6 and 8 more wounds is amazing for that same price point. So you just have a really strong beat stick here. And if you give them something that could boost the strength of their attack, cool. So they have the Thunderous Departure reaction, which a lot of Stormcasts have. The Furious Avenger, the fighter can only use the ability if there is another friendly fighter within 6 inches. With 1 or more damage points, this fighter makes a bonus move action. So just another way, if you've already used the Thunderous Strides for somebody else, and you wanted to use this guy, you could use Thunderous Strides on this guy from somebody else. Then he uses Furious Avenger to get extra bonus move, and then moves twice himself. So he's easily getting 16 inches of movement. He's got the Sigmarite Shield Bash, which is just cool. Let's see. The next time this fighter finishes a move action within 1 inch of an enemy fighter, pick a visible enemy fighter on a 3-up. Allocate number of damage points to that fighter equal to the value of this ability. So double 6, you're doing 6 damage. Kind of like some other people have a charge attack. This is on a 3-up, so it's not as guaranteed. And then for leaders, he's got the double Staunch Defender. Add 1 to the toughness characteristic of friendly fighters while they are within 6 inches of this fighter. So for a double, you could give your other Questors tough 6, which is fantastic. It makes them all just really hard to move. So he would be a great ally to join in the fray. Then obviously we've got Xandar's Truth Seekers. It's harder to find their rules in a digital form. Calthea is on the high side of things that you can bring into this warband at 210. Everything else fits in fine. But she's got 5 more wounds. She's got a 5-4-2-4 damage profile. But some of the things that are great for her, she's got the Lantern Astrala. Subtract 2 from the value of abilities to enemy fighters within 9 inches. I love a counter to some of those. And then obviously Doraz and Luxa have a couple of things that they could bring to the mix. Taros, if you needed to bring some fast movement into it, or if you wanted to offset the fact you bring Calthea in and you bring Taros to make the list work, but you're still only going to be stuck at 6 models unless you have a narrative encampment to boost how many points that you're bringing to your table. In addition to that, at the moment, Xandar's Truth Seekers all have the Thunderstrike Brother or Thunderstrike Chamber rune mark, and so have access to all of this stuff as well. So Thunderous Departure, Blaze of Glory. The big one is the triple coordinated strike that Calthea can use. Pick a number of visible friendly fighters equal to half the value of this ability, so maximum 3. Within 9 inches, those fighters can each make a bonus move action or bonus attack action. Some can make a bonus move action, others can make a bonus attack action. So again, adding to that additional move economy or attack economy just will make these guys real. So that's my introduction to my narrative warband, my Questor bust. My 6 models. It was fantastic to put them together and get them ready for our local league that just started up. Loved kind of coming up with some little bit of theme for each of them. I wouldn't say I came up with a full backstory for each of them, but starting themes and putting them in these different colors certainly changes sort of their attitudes and their temperaments or their I guess their brand, right? So you know that Attain in her Hallowed Knights uniform is a bit more of an honorable Stormcast, whereas Two-Day in their Celestial Vindicators might be a little more ruthless and ready to stab. But all in all, looking forward to seeing how the stories unfold with these. If you have any questions about the Questor Soulsworn, please leave a comment or a question. If you want to hear more tales of these guys and experiences, come to our Discord at themortalrealms.com/Discord and come join in our conversations about Warcry and other games. And listen to our podcast, Dogs of Warcry, on wherever you listen to podcasts, on Apple or on Spotify or anywhere else. Thanks for watching. Thanks for letting me share about my Questor Soulsworn warband. Look forward to sharing more in the future.